Man, what a lead into Survivor Series. A lot happened, a lot to unpack. But one thing we know for sure, Becky Lynch is the man.
The following is a Will Hansford presentation.
I like my boots with some makeup on. Really can't stand it when she taking long. Me and broke niggas, we don't get along. No new friends is a theme song. When you get on camera, better act right. Don't forget who giving you the limelight. Don't forget who giving you the bomb pipe. Trips to Hawaii on them long flights. I love it when that booty start to move. When you licking on the stick, there is nothing left to prove. And you do it even better when you gone off the booze. If you got another nigga, then it's time for you to choose. 5 bitches in the telly, I don't never get a snooze. Not into the violence, but the pussy I abuse. Listen to these other niggas and I'm really not amused. Stop with all the questions, I just left the interview. Yeah, look. I don't wanna kiss you, let's just keep it simple. I don't fall in love, I just keep it simple.
What is up, people? I missed y'all. Did y'all miss me? Did y'all miss me? It's okay to admit you missed me. I missed you. All right, but it doesn't matter how long we were apart. Absence only makes the heart grow fonder. You know, that's what they say. And as long as it's been since y'all haven't heard me, y'all should be super fond of your boy, okay? But I'm back right now. So real quick before we get started, go ahead and make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or iTunes or SoundCloud or however you may be consuming this audio content, this audio blessing for your earlobes. And make sure to share it with somebody. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's all get into the conversation together. All right. Survivor Series is coming up this weekend. Let's talk about it. Listen. The big thing that happened the past 2 days, right? The biggest takeaway to me is far and away the ascension, emergence, and establishment of Becky Lynch as a top act in all of WWE, period. Like, I cannot state that clearly enough because, you know, you get a lot of hyperbole when you talk about these things. When, you know, Becky Lynch first got hot, people were talking, you know, Stone Cold Becky Lynch and all other stuff. And I wasn't really feeling it at that point because it just felt like, you know, too much too soon as far as putting such a lofty title on her, right? Stone Cold Becky Lynch. Like, as we know, obviously, Stone Cold is one of the all-time greats to ever do it in this business. He had such an amazing following, you know, that will basically never be duplicated, right? But Becky Lynch has hit a home run from a character standpoint, the likes of which is just rarely seen. Vince McMahon would give back all the money that the Saudis paid him for Crown Jewel 10 times over if he could create the type of buzz for Roman Reigns that Becky Lynch has created for herself. This is real what's happening right now. And the only thing that remains to be seen is how much they're going to allow her to monetize this. Like, are they really going to, you know, push her to the moon as far as giving her as much merch as possible, seeing how much her stuff is going to sell, putting her on the face of everything, putting her as the cover, building the shows around her. And if they do that, I'm confident at this point that we're going to see something that we've never seen. Becky Lynch is a unique case. She may not be the, you know, most talented or gifted naturally or have the most charisma or whatever the criteria might be that you select someone, you look at them and go, yo, that's my top star. But you cannot deny the connection that she has with the audience. Even through all of the months that they position her as simply the babyface to help heels get over, the fans still stuck with her consistently. And then when she finally got a win streak building up to this match with Charlotte, fans were into it. into it so much that when Charlotte got the win, they turned on Charlotte. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. The way they told that story, Charlotte was clearly the bad guy to me. But it didn't seem that that was the original plan, right? Because we saw on Twitter, Road Dogg was arguing down people, telling them they were seeing the story that they wanted to see and not the story they were telling. Delusional much? But okay, whatever, right? The point is, people really connected with and related to and stuck with Becky Lynch. So much so that when she turned heel, it didn't matter. She's been getting cheered ever since she turned heel. And what happened the past 2 days on WWE television only solidifies the fact that the people are with Becky and they're going to ride with Becky whether she's supposed to be a good guy or whether she's supposed to be a bad guy. And to be honest with you, the last person I remember having this was Stone Cold Steve Austin. I can't think of another person recently that no matter what they did to the negative, the fans were still going to cheer them no matter what. Maybe you could argue Braun Strowman, right? Maybe you could argue that the fans turned Braun Strowman in a way that you haven't really seen so much. But this Becky thing is special, and this Becky thing is real. When she, first of all, the build up to this supposed to be Survivor Series main event, and I call it the main event. Okay, I don't know if the plan was for them to go on last, but there was no other match, no other attraction scheduled to be happening at Survivor Series that I was more interested in or that had a better build than Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. Now, the actual build for Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch was only realistically a couple of days, a couple of weeks. But the beautiful thing is that this was the intersection of 2 stories that had been getting a lot of effort and a lot of attention. You had Ronda, coming in as a celebrity, but as someone who everyone knows is a WWE fan. She has this, tremendous reputation from UFC and from doing movies and from being an iconic woman athlete, really changing the game for women competing in combat sports. So you had this story, going. The hottest thing, I'm pretty sure everyone believed that the trajectory that Ronda Rousey was on was headed to the main event of WrestleMania, but we'll come back to that later. Then you had the Becky Lynch story, which I'm not convinced was 100% supposed to happen this way. I mean, when you look at it now, it appears that the plan probably was that we would do kind of just an entire path for Ronda, right? Like you let Ronda beat all the big stars, right? So Ronda had the match with Nia Jax, which ended in a schmoz because it was Money in the Bank and Alexa Bliss interfered. Then you're going to have Ronda beat Alexa Bliss for the title. Then you have Ronda go through Becky Lynch. Then you have all leading up to, they probably would have done Ronda and Asuka at some point. They would have tried to breathe life back into Asuka somehow. They probably would have done Ronda and Asuka, and then it all would have been leading up to Ronda versus Charlotte at WrestleMania. I do believe, we'll never know, right? We'll never actually know, but I do believe that was the plan where they were going to go with this whole Ronda Rousey thing. But what Becky Lynch was able to do is maximize her minutes, right? Like you hear people say that, like if you ever play sports, you hear coaches talk about that all the time, right? Like maximize your minutes. Like you can't necessarily control how many minutes you're going to get, but you can control what you're going to do with the minutes that you do get, right? So Becky Lynch, she got a shot similar to what Carmella got, similar to what Naomi got, right? Like everybody got, not everybody, but because of, the just natural thinness of the female roster on SmackDown, they've rotated through a lot of women in top spots to see who can do something, who can catch fire. And Becky, through her use of social media, through the cult-like fan following that she's had, she's been able to catch fire in a way that nobody else really has. I mean, not even Charlotte. Like, let's be honest, they've always presented Charlotte like she's a big deal. And to Charlotte's credit, Charlotte has consistently gotten better and better, both in the ring and on the microphone. Her character has consistently gotten better and better. So, Charlotte is, she's no slouch, right? I would never, ever, ever, ever try to discount what Charlotte has accomplished or what she brings to the table. But I mean, just look around, man. Like, look at the way that Becky has taken her moment in the spotlight and turned it into a top spot. So what we had on Raw last night, and then what we had tonight on SmackDown, was just a showcase of where Becky is in relation to everyone else, right? Last night, you had Ronda Rousey come out and cut her promo talking about how she, can't wait to get Becky in the ring and, show her how it's done with the broken arms and all of that stuff. And as soon as she mentioned Becky's name, what did the crowd do? They started chanting, Becky, Becky, Becky. Not break her arm, nothing like that. They weren't chanting Ronda. They were chanting Becky, Becky. And Ronda Rousey has, listen, leading up to this, Ronda Rousey has bitten off more than she can chew. And listen, it's not her fault. It's not like she intentionally picked a fight with Becky Lynch, but this is the setup, right? But they unfortunately set her up against someone who has the strongest fan following. And oh, by the way, Becky Lynch is an absolute beast on Twitter. All of those, witty puns that she used to do, all those corny little jokes she used to do, you got to be pretty quick on the draw in order to come up with stuff like that all the time, right? And so the fact that Becky Lynch was able to consistently do that should tell you that she's a quick-witted person, right? So that's not necessarily the person you want to be trading barbs back and forth with on Twitter. But Ronda got into it. She got into it with Becky, and Becky was letting her have it. I would compare, Ronda versus Becky on Twitter to Ronda versus Amanda Nunes in the UFC. Too soon? No, no. I think actually, Stat Guy Greg from the Cheap Heat podcast tweeted out a GIF of Amanda Nunes beating up Ronda Rousey with Becky Lynch's face photoshopped over Amanda Nunes, but that would be an accurate description of their Twitter exchange. I mean, Becky is not to be trifled with within 140 characters, or how many characters you get now? It's more than 140. But the point is, if Becky tweets you, just eat it. Just eat it. If Becky mentions you in a tweet, just, LOL or favorite it or retweet it or something, but don't go back and forth because she's only going to make it worse. She's only going to make it worse. And so when you had this exchange going on back and forth, this was actually leading to their promos that were coming on, right? Becky having a problem with the way this thing was being promoted, with the posters and how she was positioned and all things like that. And then what I thought was the major misstep, and this is not Ronda Rousey's fault. This is definitely 100% the fault of, the creative team, the people who are writing Ronda's promos. But they wrote a promo for Ronda where she was putting down all of the odd jobs that Becky had to do before she became a pro wrestler. And I thought that was a major misstep from the moment I was hearing it. I mean, aside from the fact that, she's just horrible at delivering her lines. Like, listen, it takes a while to get good at, taking a script and making it your own. Like, it's not something everybody can just do off the cuff. Like, I work in TV, and a lot of the people that I work with, they write their own stuff. So that way it sounds much more natural when it's coming out of their mouth, right? That makes perfect sense. But in WWE, they don't do that. Right? They don't do that because they're too scared to go against the grain. And so what you get is a lot of bad dialogue, a lot of people delivering stuff that doesn't sound natural, doesn't sound like stuff they would normally say, and might talk them into a corner like Ronda did with Becky Lynch. So they gave her this promo where she's talking about, while you were being a stewardess or whatever, I was training to be the baddest bee on the planet. And as I was listening to this, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, they're going to kill her for this. See, wrestling fans, they love wrestling, duh, but they also love people who love wrestling. And all Ronda did with that, and again, I hate to say Ronda, but all the writers did with that promo was make Ronda look like someone who is just in WWE to get a paycheck. Which, don't get me wrong, everyone for the most part is in WWE to get a paycheck, but there's a lot of people who are, lifelong chasers of this dream to be in that ring, who work through injury and all that other stuff. And I think Ronda is like that on some level, right? Like, Ronda's been a fan of WWE for a long time, and she has made plenty of money. She doesn't have to be here. She's obviously a fan of the product. I saw Ronda Rousey perform at a house show in Hartford, Connecticut a few weeks ago. So she's not she's not doing the Brock Lesnar, you know what I mean? To show up only at the big shows and, just defend my title, do the bare minimum. She's not doing that. I think Ronda clearly is a real fan of wrestling, and she's committed to being good at it. But that promo didn't make her look like it. And I thought what she did with that promo was she put herself in Roman Reigns' category. She put herself in Charlotte's category, and she played right into Becky Lynch's hands. She played right into Becky Lynch's hands because Becky Lynch came right back and was like, oh yeah, you know what? I wasn't handed this. You were handpicked for this. And I was like, bang, 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 bang. Take that for data, right? I mean, like, you set yourself up perfectly to have the crowd go against you in this. And we saw that on Monday night. Again, when Ronda mentioned Becky's name, the crowd chanted for Becky. When Becky came out later in the night, the crowd chanted for Becky. When Becky was beating Ronda Rousey with a steel chair, the crowd chanted for Becky. Becky has, in the eyes of the fans, Becky is the favorite over Becky versus Ronda. Listen, unless you don't understand the simple reaction, right? Like yay or boo, right? There's no way you could be confused about this. The fans want Becky over Ronda. And listen, this might have actually worked out for the best because Ronda was going to beat Becky at Survivor Series and she was going to get booed. She was going to get booed because the fans like Becky Lynch. And to further to what I thought really underscored this whole thing for me was, okay, so today the news came out that the Ronda Becky match was off for Survivor Series and that Becky would have to come out on SmackDown and pick her replacement. Now, I thought, Charlotte seemed like the logical next choice. But again, I was thinking, are you going to not throw away, but are you going to, give your WrestleMania main event with no build? And yeah, they are. But the fact that Charlotte got chosen to take the spot is not what stood out to me about that segment. What stood out was the fact that they brought out the entire SmackDown women's roster and then brought out Becky separately. And she came out to a huge pop. She came out to a bigger pop than AJ Styles. She came out to a bigger pop than Daniel Bryan. She got probably a standing ovation. And even all the wrestlers in the ring treated her like she was the man. And so she came out separately. She cut a promo owning it, wearing her bruise, wearing her scar, right? And everyone loved her for it. And then she passed off the match to Charlotte. And then she walked out separately, alone. She owned that segment in a segment that featured every other woman on the show. She owned it. It was all about her. 100% about her. She came out separately. She left separately. That's the Roman Reigns treatment. That's the John Cena treatment, right? Like, when you are separate from the group. That used to be the Charlotte treatment. I mean, who knows where this is going to go? But for me, it appears obvious, right, that Becky has ascended to top guy status, right? And I even tweeted out, Becky really is the man. Becky is the man. No, she's standing above the other performers on that roster. They even did a WWE title change tonight. But is that as big a headline as the Becky Lynch thing? Let's talk about that title change real quick. Okay, so I thought something was really interesting a few weeks ago. Okay, once they announced that they were going to be doing the SmackDown Champion versus Raw Champion theme at Survivor Series again, they announced that it was going to be AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar, which I thought was interesting because we got AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar last year at Survivor Series. And now it's obviously far be it from WWE to not do the same match 2 years in a row, 2 weeks in a row. You know what I mean? Like, good Lord, how many times have we seen Chad Gable and Bobby Roode versus the Ascension, right? Like, they'll do the same match over and over. That's not a problem for them. But here's where I think this was different. Usually when they do the same match over and over and over again, they want you to forget that first match ever happened. And WWE on their own social media tweeted out, hey, let's look back at AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar from last year. And I thought that was really interesting. To me, that raised my eyebrow a little bit because I was like, WWE don't usually do that, right? Like when they were promoting the Undertaker Triple H WrestleMania matches, they didn't say, hey, look back at Undertaker and Triple H's previous WrestleMania match. No, they want to act like those things never happened, right? So the fact that they were pointing us to the AJ Brock match from last year told me something was up, because I said, okay, I don't think AJ is going to beat Brock at Survivor Series, but why else would they be pointing us to the same result from the year before? So I had no idea what was going to happen, but I had a feeling something was going to happen. And then when the match started to come about tonight, I was like, are they going to do a title change? I thought that was really interesting, especially considering that Daniel Bryan didn't go to the Saudi Arabia show. And, we had seen a report saying that Daniel Bryan, there were no, quote, big plans for him going forward. And so to see him get thrown into a title match kind of randomly, right, with little to no build, like there was no really prep for this. I thought that was interesting. It felt kind of like it was hot-shotted, but I don't totally think it was hot-shotted. Like I said, the social media thing kind of tipped me off that something was up, but I'm not going to lie, I didn't see this coming. So I thought that was really interesting. And not just the fact that Daniel Bryan won the title, but he did an apparent heel turn, right? Okay, a heel turn is only not a heel turn when you're Roman Reigns. Okay, for everybody else, a heel turn is a heel turn. When you get 2 or 3 other guys to help you beat up somebody and save your title, or when you kick somebody in the nuts, that is a heel turn for anyone except Roman Reigns. Okay, so Daniel Bryan turned heel tonight. He kicked AJ with a low blow, and then he hit him with the knee to the face to get the win in the WWE Championship. And then he laughed about it, smiled about it, had this sick look on his face. And then he started to beat up AJ more after the match just to make sure you know that this is a heel turn. This is a heel turn. So, or is it? Right? You never know with these guys. You never know. But yeah, I mean, like, so that's going to be, a big thing that everybody's going to be buzzing about leading into Survivor Series. I got to say, kudos to WWE. Nobody, when in a pressure situation, WWE is undefeated, man. It's just that when there is no pressure, they just get lazy and give you filler. And they have no remorse about it. But when they are pressed to put something together, whew, man, they are amazing, absolutely amazing at shifting gears and changing a storyline, giving you something new, giving you something fresh on what feels like a moment's notice. So yeah, this is the little bit of act right I need from WWE to keep watching. This is the little bit of, positive reinforcement that keeps me coming back in the midst of all the crap that we get for so much of the WWE year. But yeah, listen, you successfully got me interested in Survivor Series, so congratulations. Good job, WWE. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little podcast. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. Share it, subscribe, like, and tweet me at TW Talking About. Tweet the show at Talking About Pod and let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we're going to talk about more next time. Peace.
On the neck to make the pussy melt. I'm just trying to make it to the summit. I know this shit is coming, got the feeling in my stomach. Bitch ain't respond, now she hit me all of a sudden. I just get the number, then I send it to my cousin. Never check the tag, I ain't ballin' on a budget. Got a lot of bands now, but I need that Warren Buffett. Then you see me ballin' every day, I'm getting buckets like a shooter, I could dunk it. Call me Thomas Legend Drummond. I'm on the shit, yeah, I knew it. Got the Nikes on my feet, yeah, I do it. And the that we smoke, yeah, we grew it. I don't never knock on the door, I break through it. Yeah. I don't wanna kiss you, let's just keep it simple. I don't fall in love, I just keep it simple. I just wanna fuck, let's just keep it simple. Money going up, I just keep it simple. I don't wanna kiss you, let's just keep it simple. I don't fall in love, I just keep it simple. I just wanna fuck, let's just keep it simple. Money going up.